Hello and welcome to the Molloy Business Channel Market Report. I'm your host, Tom Manfre. Volkswagen recently made headlines around the world due to a diesel emission scandal. VW installed software in its cars that falsely changed the readings on the level of emissions. This made their cars seem far cleaner than they actually were. This has significantly damaged the company's reputation and could potentially lead to billions of dollars in fines. I am joined today by our analysts, Mike Paone and Tim Klotsche, to discuss the future of Volkswagen. Tim, Mike, thanks for being here with us today. So Tim, would you mind giving us a little bit of a background on what's going on with VW right now?
Sure. So this scandal is very similar to the scandals with GM and Toyota of years past. Basically, with GM and Toyota, GM had a problem with its ignition and Toyota had a problem with its accelerators. They both faced massive fines and they both had to do some recalls. We expect that the same thing will wind up happening with Volkswagen.
Mm-hmm. So Mike, it seems that Volkswagen had blatantly lied to consumers, telling them that they installed these emissions programs that provide for greener, much better fuel-efficient cars, but in reality they didn't. So do you think that this has a serious ethical repercussion, especially since they have been lying to customers for this amount of time?
Absolutely. The entire executive management has stepped down. The previous CEO, in which the scandal took place under, has resigned, and the new CEO, who has vowed that this will never happen again. Mm-hmm. This is definitely a step in the right direction for the company.
Mm-hmm. So by fixing this issue, do you think that the EPA will be so inclined as to give VW the green light on saying that their cars are okay now to manufacture in the US?
It's tough to tell you what exactly the EPA will do right now. Right now, they haven't done any forced recalls yet, but in Europe, they have started to do some forced recalls. So it's tough to say whether or not the EPA will follow suit or whether or not it'll just be a recall in Europe.
Now, are these recalls going to affect the price of Volkswagen's cars?
It's tough to say right now what will happen with brand new Volkswagen cars. That'll depend more on demand and how sales of Volkswagen cars are doing. But in terms of resale, those are very much go down because as they've been driven more, they're already going to be dealing with a lower gas mileage after this repair. And then once the car gets used, it's a very heavily damaged miles per gallon number, and people aren't necessarily going to want to buy that.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mike, has this bled over into the earnings, this effect that it might have on sales?
Currently in the U.S., sales have been just as good, if not better, than quarters past. The American market has not been affected at all by this scandal so far.
Now, outside of just the Volkswagen brand, Volkswagen owns several other car companies, especially some luxury brands like Audi and Lamborghini and Bentley. Will this scandal affect the sales on those cars, and has there been any sort of emissions problems with these cars also?
I don't believe so. Typically, a consumer would not associate Volkswagen with an outstanding brand like Bentley. Usually, Volkswagen and other car brands are thought to be like individual.
Okay. Now, will this also affect the Volkswagen stock price? And will this potentially create a buying opportunity for Americans to get involved in the German and possibly other European markets, especially in terms of car manufacturers?
Well, right now, the Volkswagen stock was down about 25% right after the scandal. But then the problem is that whether or not that number is the number that's the low point, or is that just a middle point between that and a lower number? And I think it's more closer to the second option. I think just based on the amount that they're going to have to pay out in fines, plus any recall incentives that they have to pay to consumers, I think that they're in for a tough financial road ahead, and I think that will affect the stock price.
Regarding the future of the company, one analyst said that granted they have 18 billion euros of fines, they have 28 billion euros of cash on hand. So the company will be able to absorb the fine and really not have an issue with it moving forward. So I really do think the company's going to be able to bounce back and the stock will be going up. So yes, this is going to be a great opportunity to purchase the stock.
So you see this more as a short-term problem with an easy fix, with potentially paying off these huge fines relatively quickly. You see this more as a long-term play where this is going to affect the company over the course of the next 5-10 years?
I don't know if it would be the next 5 to 10 years because eventually people will forget. They forgot with GM and they forgot with Toyota. But I think that right now, I don't know if we're at the point where I can call this a buying opportunity.
Okay, so we're running low on time right now. Final question. What do you guys have, a buy, sell, or hold on the stock?
I have a sell. I just think that there's too much risk and not enough reward.
I have a buy. I think the company is not going to be leaving the top 3 anytime soon, and the company still has a lot of future ahead of it.
Tim, Mike, thank you for being with us today. I'm your host, Tom Manfre, and thank you for joining us today on the Molloy Business Channel Market Report. We'll see you next time.